We got him in hopes of having another.
You are streaming live.
If you want him to stay right, you want him to stay right there.
I said that. Not showing up.
Okay. I believe you.
Yeah, we're live.
The January 22nd regular meeting of Howard City Cemetery Board is called to order at 4:32 p.m. Members present: Dale Smith, Mike Carroll, Dan Jordan, active, Jim Carroll, Dan Griffith, others present: Greg Worth, Don Moore, and Austin McCoy. And the first order of business will be the approval of minutes for the October 23rd. And I move we accept. Mike and Dale, and we all say aye. Are we ready to go down to old business? We have all business?
No,
Anybody?
the whole business is this.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we've been,
Have we talked about that before? Have we seen,
it's a budget item.
but we have.
We have.
So,
That's
maybe when you were saying.
Oh, somebody keep throwing something.
No, well, we could talk about, I don't think we've really talked about in detail. We talked about the concept of it, right?
Right.
Yes.
We are.
And use. Okay. Great job.
We've been looking and have been going over, proposals for cemetery software, so that we get into a situation where somebody is not available, like the sexton, things can be found and we can actually track stuff better. And we finally found one that is reasonable and actually has a good web page that goes with it. So it gives people the ability to come online and do research, as well as, they can actually go online and pick a lot to purchase as well, and make a purchase on it. They don't have to actually be here to do that. They can actually make that purchase online. It also has some other things that it can do that I'm not sure that we even have the ability to do. And one was to purchase flowers. They could actually, if somebody is in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and they want to purchase flowers to go on their grandmother's or their parents' graves, and they're not here for Memorial Day, they could actually go online and do that. We are not lined up really with anybody, nor does the basket case here in town use a website. And they're not really linked with any of the Teleforce type setup. So I'm not sure that that's even available.
Right,
They-
and as a public entity, you probably kind of need to avoid that anyway.
Well, I mean, it provides an issue or an ability to do something that they may not have otherwise. Other than that, they're just going to go get Teleforce and have them deliver it to something. And so the other is they can actually upload an obituary or a memorial if they want, and there's a charge for that. We also get a part of that. We are recipients of part of that too. So. All right, there's a setup fee in which they'll bring someone on. They'll have someone here on site that does some photographs and does research to help put it all together. They'll get some information from us. They can't use our Esri, but they can pull it. They can use our files and stuff like that to help set up. And that price is I found that to be pretty close, $7,000 to $8,000 is what a lot of them charge. This one I think was $7,500 in the proposal. And then the 3-year contract is $150 a month, which still takes it down to keeps it within the realm of proposals or instead of bid. This is not a bid thing. So, but it does give us the ability to have real time to access database information, records, print out, documents, etc. Take payments and then, so it's something we've been looking for to assist us, in-house. So that's what we had 20,000 budgeted, so it falls within our budget. It's not, it's less than 40,000. The entire project itself is going to be less than 20,000 over a 3-year period, so.
Is the big picture, just for purposes of me catching up, is the big picture, it allows us to be able to, in an organized, relatively quick way, be able to determine who owns what and who's buried where? Is that an oversimplistic view? But is that what it's aimed at?
Yeah, I mean, but you have the ability to do the things that you're out. You also want it to do, like, who we can assign, there's a place there where they can assign who is the person who tells who can live, who can be buried there. That's also included in that. I mean, all this information is there. The stuff that we're doing with forms and doing paper copies and everything, we can actually do it through the computer system.
It doesn't dictate our methodology. It simply facilitates our method by organizing it and giving us access
Correct.
to whatever it is that we're doing.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, it's not, we don't change our system for it. It works in our system.
Gotcha.
Can't Nick take it off site too? I'm not hearing him talking about that. He could go to the cemetery with the tablet. Did I hear him talking about that?
Yeah, he can do it he has the ability, the number of users is what that is. And yes, he can actually utilize it, take a laptop or his phone or whatever and open it up and operate it from that and if he's got internet service or phone service, yeah, he could operate it there on site.
Nick could or who could?
Nick could, whoever is a user. So there'll be at least 2 because we'll have it for whoever's going to back him up can have that ability as well. It's not going to be Nick alone. That's the whole point. Nick alone does not work when Nick alone is sick or gone somewhere.
Is he coming tonight?
No.
I'm wondering, how did we do? We've got a section in our current regulations that John and I were discussing today, and I don't know how well we did with it, but it says, the title of the section is Interment Rights Conveyed prior to September 2010. That's when we took over in September 2010.
Yes, that's what it says.
That's what I would assume. Then the current or intended ownership of interment rights in the cemetery acquired prior to September 2010 is uncertain in many cases. That's what we said in the original regulations. The records of the prior owners of the cemetery now in the possession of the city are incomplete and indefinite. Accordingly, the city will make reasonable efforts to confirm such intentions and seek formal burial contracts with those who are the intended owners of those rights, as confirmed by a preponderance of the available and credible evidence. The city will seek the assistance and cooperation of the citizens of the city and surrounding community in its efforts to confirm the intended and purchased ownership of the grave spaces in question. However, in the event that the city cannot confirm intended and purchased ownership of such questionable grave spaces, after making reasonable efforts to do so, such grave spaces shall be declared abandoned and may be sold by the city. The city shall make all reasonable efforts to accommodate and supply replacement grave spaces for any persons later asserting ownership of such abandoned grave spaces and proving such ownership by preponderance of the evidence. That's what we said initially, because we just had a bunch of grave spaces and we weren't sure who owned a bunch of them. And so we said, okay, we're going to give it 6 months. We're going to go out and try to identify who owns what 6 months. And if we can't figure it out, then they go up for sale. And if later somebody comes in and they said, hey, wait a minute, you sold my grave space, then we said, okay, we'll do whatever we can to try to, if we can determine that you did in fact own a grave space, then we'll try to make recompense. But we got to do something to nail it down. I mean, you got to have a place to go forward from. And what happened last week was we had a situation where we had a family And we don't know, I guess to this moment, we don't know for sure if we have a contract, a burial contract, right?
Linda seems to think we do.
Oh, we do.
She hasn't showed it to me, but she seems to think we do.
She ain't shown it to me.
Right. I mean, she's going, but that's the situation. The situation is you're talking about draftings. You're talking about 6 lots that have got cornerstones, and you got 3 burials in those 6 lots. One of them is a son, the other one is now the other son.
Well, just so you guys understand, if you don't mind, if we can go to law school for about a minute. For 1 minute, I'll try to do this in 1 minute. 4 years was wasted.
Please let it go.
If you could do it in a minute. If you could do it in a minute. Okay. The right to be buried in a spot, when you buy a plot from Calvert City, what you purchase is interment rights.
Right.
You purchase the right to be buried there. You don't actually own the fee simple. You just own the right to bury somebody there. The person who owns those interment rights generally is the person who bought it. But they are property rights and they're owned by somebody. I mean, I might buy one for Dale, and so Dale would be the owner, but someone is the designated owner at the time of purchase. Okay, so then I buy it for Dale. Well, then Dale can be buried there. But when Dale dies, those interment rights pass to somebody else. One of 2 ways. Either by contract, there's some contractual arrangement like a POD or a TOD on a bank account. I say, okay, when Dale dies, then we're gonna let John be then John's gonna be the owner of it to determine who's gonna be buried. So that's one way for it to pass. If you don't have that kind of a contractual arrangement set up, then it's a property right that passes by virtue of the probate of your estate, just like any other property right. You know, if you have a will, it passes by virtue of whatever the terms in your will are. If you don't have a will, then it passes by virtue of the terms of the law of intestacy in Kentucky. Okay, so that's how it works. That's how those property rights pass. So the problem becomes, it's an important, I mean, it's a big decision when you're talking about where someone's body is going to be interred for eternity. That's really important to a lot of people. And if somebody's been planning on getting buried in a certain spot because Daddy said so, because Daddy said I was going to get buried there, but now Daddy's gone and Daddy can't control that situation, you can find yourself in the middle of a fairly heated legal battle over who owns the rights to be buried in that spot. Now, the real issue for the cemetery manager owner is those decisions have to be made quickly. You can't argue about it. You can't litigate it for 2 or 3 years before you bury somebody. A decision has to be made, and it has to be made now. Well, that's tough if it's an unanswered question. If nobody knows who owns the interment rights for that, we want to bury somebody. Well, I want to bury Daddy in that lot, but we, the city, have no documents to determine who actually owns, not what family owns, because the Northcutt family has, but there were 21 of them at my house for Christmas. That's a bunch of people. That family doesn't own, a family can't own something, a person or an entity or Jana and I, some named entities own something. Well, the problem is people don't think that way when it comes to interment rights. They just kind of think, okay, well, this is the Northcutt area. And they're going to fill it full of Northcutts. Well, that's all great until it gets full or until somebody wants to be buried besides somebody else when someone else wanted to be buried at that spot, or for whatever reason there's a conflict. So what you and the city did was to put in place a 2-part uh, answer, solution. The first one was a burial contract that says, okay, I just bought 6 plots. And I, on my burial contract, recited that I'm making John my burial representative. That means John has the right to determine who goes in what hole. And if John's dead, my backup is Dale. And if Dale's gone, he goes on.
How far back can you back up?
You can go about it reasonably far. I mean, you can name 3 or 4 or 5. That's
Yeah.
what you
I
want me
mean,
to do.
and not run into that situation out there that quickly.
Right. Well, and we've got another element to this plan, that when there's only one burial representative left, that burial representative can appoint another burial representative. We grant, as a part of the interment right grant, they also have the right to appoint their own successor. So someone else that can appoint the next person who dies, if they've got enough lots that they need that. So we've tried to put in place a machine, if you will, a legal machine, to allow that question to be answered. Because, again, when Mike dies, we can't talk about it for six months. He's gonna have to be buried within a few days, and we gotta get that question answered. Which is why we put in there, okay, we're gonna give it 6 months. We're gonna go out there and we're gonna try to get burial contracts on every lot in that cemetery. And for any of them that we can't tie down within 6 months, then they're up for grabs. We're gonna put them up for sale and sell them to somebody else, and basically they are terminated if we can't figure it out in 6 months and get somebody. And now what happens is, if we can't find somebody, or we do find that, oh, well, this was the Outlands. These were the Outlands lots. Okay, who bought them? Well, it was Jim that bought them. Okay. Well, who did Jim leave them to? Did Jim have a will? Where was it probated? Where is that will? Let's look at it and see who inherited Jim's interment rights. Because whoever that is the person who has the right to make those designations now, and is the person that should be signing. Whoever inherited it is the person or persons who should be signing that burial contract. Now, I realize for hopefully not bunches, but for a few, that could be a fairly complicated. We're a little bitty cemetery, and now we're talking about complicated legal stuff. Yeah, that's true. But what's more complicated is if you start just randomly burying people because they have a certain last name. And then somebody shows up and says, hey, wait a minute, my wife's buried back there. You buried Jim beside my wife. Shoot. Now we got a problem.
So how do we go about solving it?
What, a misburial or something like that?
Well, I mean, I know we did the burial contract back some years ago. You sent out letters and stuff, and said, hey.
I don't know how, that's how I started this. I don't know how successful we are. I don't know if we have 5 unknown lots or 95 unknown lots. I don't know. But we probably need to start by looking to see, how did we do? Well, how big is this problem? Is it a little tiny problem? If it's a little tiny problem, maybe it's not that big of a problem. But if there's a whole bunch of lots out there that we don't know, now, you're right. If that contract does exist, and we do have most of the contracts, and it's just a matter of laying our hands on that, then something like this would get us there. Because right now, do we even know where to start looking for those? Do we know where they're filed?
He's got a stack that damn thick big.
So they're not. You just have to go through all of it.
Of that and whatever he's got stuck back then, because the old stuff has not been scanned in. That's a problem.
Right.
So you couldn't find, you gotta go through and hand do that. So that's another issue.
Yeah. So you got that issue.
I'm sorry.
My parents, when their first child died, bought 6 lots. That's 1934.
You got that paperwork?
Yeah.
On that, have you got the paperwork on those lots?
Me?
Yeah.
Go back, no.
Does
Who
anyone?
does?
Nobody.
Then you've lost those lots.
You mean out there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you had the burial contract.
Yeah, if someone, whoever inherited from your parents had signed a burial contract, it would be good to go. I wonder if you responded when we did all that publication stuff. I wonder if your family responded and got a burial contract. Well, there you go. So,
See, all you got is his memory and we have no record of it. And so what you're saying is we just wiped all that clean, right?
no, what this says is you look, you try to find evidence. What we said we were gonna do is the city will make all reasonable efforts to accommodate, sorry. Says the city will seek the assistance and cooperation of the citizens of the city and surrounding community in its efforts to confirm the intended and purchased ownership of the grave spaces in question. And then it says, however, in the event the city cannot confirm intended and purchased ownership of the questionable grave space. And so what we'd wind up doing is take Mike's testimony and whatever else, you know, whatever other evidence there might be.
6 lots. Right in the middle of it is one left.
Oh.
That's me.
So there's some decent evidence right there. But you look at all those circumstances and you determine, is it
Are you the
reasonable
lawyer?
to
Are you the
assume?
sole lawyer?
There won't be no problem over it.
Well, yeah, if he hasn't signed a burial contract, then there's a problem.
Well, that's it's like this, because I don't. There was a hall and name it Dad Lawson.
Mhm.
And he, I don't think he had a burial contract,
They didn't at the
I don't
time.
know, 34.
but he had the paper that said he had paid so much for
Well, there-
professional care.
And there you go.
So-
If somebody's got that kind of thing, then
That's a document.
that's all the
That's
evidence we
evidence.
need.
So. and
But see, that's what
when
I'm
we were doing
concerned
all that,
about is
We,
people.
we filled out the contract of who
Oh,
was.
you did that in 2010?
Yeah.
And see, that's the key. And if, I don't know if you did or didn't. If you did not, then you need to. And we need to, we, all God's children, need to put the pressure on. Put the-
We can get, go ahead.
Put the pressure on the people who are going to be claiming ownership of lots out there to sign a burial contract and designate.
I thought we did all that, didn't we do that?
That's
I'm
not.
sure we did, but we did, but
Apparently
here
not.
you
You
got
just
somebody
said
on the
you
board who hasn't, but what I'm saying is, no, listen, seriously, that's what it is. The issue we have is people, there's no given way to get the message out anymore. Used to be, you could put it on the radio, you could send out a flyer, you could call it. Anymore, there's not enough ways to do it because of all the different things of social media, and I don't watch TV, I stream, I don't want, and it's become just chaotic.
Right.
Instead of being better, it's to talk to a group of people about a broad subject or a broad group of people about a subject has become far harder than it ever was before.
It's just ignored mostly.
Mostly, yeah.
The letters did go out.
The letters went out. We did some postings and stuff. And so, at this point in time, I'm going to say, if I have somebody that should come up to me, and I may be stepping out of line on this, but if someone can come up to me and give me indication that is part and parcel of theirs, I'm not going to stop at this point. I'm going to move forward with that. Because,
And I'm gonna say.
I know you are, and I'm gonna step out probably both ways.
Personally.
Well, I may do it, but the whole thing in a nutshell is if these individuals have some kind of but 2 days before a funeral is,
There's no time to be figuring this out.
no, but that's exactly what's gonna happen.
Well.
That's exactly what's gonna happen.
But
There's some families, it's in trouble, and there's some families that it's major.
and we can quantify that, and it wouldn't be that hard to quantify it. We just haven't done it. But we've got the records. We got stacks of things.
And it's not readily available. And again,
Right.
this is part of why I want this system, because those records will be at a keystrokes note,
Right.
whereas before, right now, I have to pull someone off of doing W-2s that have to go out at the end of the month just to run a hand file check on everything we've got.
And that's the ongoing management on how you operate and how you live from this point forward.
Yes.
But you gotta have a starting spot. You got to have a place to start. And it seems to me that we gotta find out how many Janas and how many Mikes do we have? What have we got?
Mhm.
Because again, if we're only talking about five graves out there that we don't know who owns them, okay. let's get serious about those 5 and see if we can figure out who owns them, and personally start making phone calls and calling and see if we can settle some of those. But if we've got 100 of them, well, shoot, now we gotta step back and read.
He's done a lot of research himself over the years. Nick has, yeah. Because we were using Ancestry and some other things to help find and follow up on some of these burials and stuff of that nature. And so he's done a lot of research himself, but we've got to get that into the system. So, I mean, it's not something that just went to the end, just we went out, set something out, and then that was just disappeared, that was the end of it. He's been doing work on it.
But we also have to decide, we didn't follow through with our original plan. We just didn't. We didn't terminate. We
I
didn't
think we
terminate.
got to the point we didn't know what else to do.
Yeah,
And I wasn't gonna stop a funeral,
right,
you know,
right,
the day before with a family that's been here forever.
Right.
I'm not gonna do it. You know, if it comes down to it and we have an issue, I dealt with these at Fulton. It's called exhume, scoot over, set it back down. It happens.
That is happening.
It's happened here before.
and no matter what you do, it will continue to happen, but we need to know if that is a huge problem or kind of a problem.
I agree with you.
And Nick probably can tell us. He may not be able to tell us without reviewing his notes and making some charts,
Oh, absolutely.
doing some work. But I think job one, I think, yes, let's get something like this in place because we got to go forward. But we're going to have to tell them where to start, and we got to have a plan for what we're going to do the next time. Now, we don't know that last week when the Dragons came in, we don't know that they didn't have a burial contract. Linda seems to think they do, but nobody can lay their hands on it. That's where this comes in. Maybe somebody, well, no, it couldn't have gone before 2010 because there was no such thing before 2010. We're looking only for things that have been signed since 2010. And so, would you like me to put him? Hey, Rick, come here. Rick,
They don't.
hey, listen to me. Come here.
Get that good.
You might be. Listen to me. You're not Doug, are you? Get over here. Come on. Yeah, stay. Sorry, guys. That's all right. But if we have, for instance, if there's a family, if the Hollands come in and, oh no, daddy died, we want to bury daddy. And we've been talking to the Hollands for the last 2 years, trying to get them to sign a burial contract, and they've refused to do so. I'm sorry, but you don't have a lot to bury daddy in. I mean, it's got to be that if you're going to run a cemetery, you got to have some rules for running it. You can't just let people run out there and dig a hole wherever they want, and bury whoever they want, wherever they want. That's not how cemeteries work. So, on the one hand, if you got bad records and you don't know what you're talking about to start with, you're in a world of hurt when you're telling people, I'm sorry, but you can't bury daddy there, because you don't really know, even if you've got a burial contract or not. You're on such loose sand that you can't make decisions. It's terrible. But I think let's find out how big our problem is. Let's go ahead and put our machine in place for keeping up with what with the records and the situation that we're dealing with. Simultaneously, let's charge Nick with the job of tell us what lots do we not know? What lots do we not know? What lots do we not have burial contracts?
Yeah, that's what he needs to go back and look at burial contracts for those that have multiple burials already in a plot of graves that's already got cornerstones and stuff like that, and go back and contact them. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, just how many graves, how many plots are there out there that we think some are
Well,
on there, but
another
we don't
thing-
have burial contracts.
Another thing that this will help, I think, is that we'll have a actual website where people will be able to look and say, well, I think my grandparents got graves out there, and they're gonna look at it. And we've got the ability to also let them know that, hey, guess what? I mean, if you don't have a burial contract, there's no burial. And so if you have evidence that this is your grave, or that the family has this, you need to contact us.
If you need to explain what a burial contract is, if you just say.
we have the ability, we'll have the ability to do it,
We have
because
a form right here.
Yeah.
This
we
is
can
the
go
No
outside.
cost to this,
do what?
no cost to this.
Not to them.
One they already
Not
own.
for them.
No, it's not to them. Well, the only cost they have are the same cost that we have.
If I go out there now and buy a burial plot, yeah, there's a cost to me.
But if
But if it's somebody that my granddaddy bought,
Yeah.
and I'm just taking Johnny's old records and say, hey, I got a receipt from Johnny where my great granddaddy bought 3 tracks or 30 or whatever. No, there's no cost of that. You're just establishing.
Well, this
your
will
own.
help us establish a lot of that because it'll like create a database for each set of grave, or each grave, or each set of graves. And that information will be available for that. So you can actually go back and say, all right, this has got, this group here is in this, but we don't have a burial contract. So we need to maybe see if we can find, and he's done some work, like see if we can find some of the people that might be related to see if we can get them to show up with some information to see about, say you've got 2 empty lots, and this is not uncommon. You got 2 empty lots.
I guess I thought we'd already done all.
Well, we did a broad
Somebody.
stroke.
Yeah.
And Jana, we did this broad stroke, and you got people that are not even in this area that'll never see that broad stroke. And so with a website, off of the city's website, the cemetery website will have a page of its own where this information can be found and they can actually do it online.
So anyone can access it,
Yes.
but only Nick and another person will be able to actually use the software.
No,
No.
there'll be 2 or 3 people in staff that can use the software, but it'll be people that are designated to work with that. Glenda will be one. She will probably be the other one, as well as Nick.
Well,
But they
having,
receive the training if they need to, if they don't have
Yes,
to.
because that part of the setup, everything includes the training.
having Nick identify non-contract lots is part of what these people are gonna need. to-
That'll help
information they're
us,
gonna
yeah.
feed into their system.
We can help determine where we are with that, and that will help us focus for the future, focus on those things.
And when we identify all the Mikeys in the world, then we can divide them up among ourselves and we can call. Because, I mean, the reality is, if Jana had called you and said, you need to sign a burial contract for that lot. Sure. You weren't resisting signing it. It was just, it didn't seem like a big deal. And that's the way it is to everybody. You know, they hear, somebody tells them, well, there was an article in the paper. Okay. Well, I do wills for people. Most people think they're never gonna die. They wait until they're 90 years old before they ever do the first will because they're pretty sure they're not ever gonna die. And it's the same thing. We're dealing with the same thing when you're talking about grave plots. We don't need to hurry up and get our grave situation fixed because we're not gonna die anytime soon. Well, yeah, at some point you die. So I think a call from
Come in
one of
tomorrow?
us. I
You
think
come
a
in
call.
tomorrow? You can come in tomorrow, sign your contract. If you don't, you'll forget it. You know you will.
I don't believe it.
Yeah.
I really do not believe
I didn't get the letter because I had already done it.
it. And my attitude,
Well,
see, my attitude that was, they bought the lots. There's one right in the middle left. I'm the 6th one, and I just figured right there.
you're not the only one that thinks that way.
Yeah.
Seriously.
There's a bunch of people.
He don't.
Right. Because I'm the guy that has to stand in front of the judge and the jury. And it's just not, it seems logical to you because you're the only remaining.
Yeah.
But 12 people sitting on the jury don't know that.
Spell
I don't
logic.
know that.
Here's
John
what I
doesn't know that.
spell logic and legal. They ain't spelled the same, they ain't the same.
They're not the
Just
same.
remember that. They are not the same. They're not even in the same species.
That's right. Don't ever try to be.
Never,
like-
never put logic in legal. It doesn't work.
But what you want for administrators is to make things black and white. We don't want John making decisions. We want him checking boxes. Really?
If he calls me a monkey, I'm a kid.
I'm gonna stick it.
Shut up, Greg.
I had a prosecutor tell me one time that a chimp can do this job. Because you're just checking boxes. But that is kind of what we want here, because if we're making judgment calls as to who John or Allison thinks should be able to be buried in that lot, dang,
No,
you are begging for legal problems right there. We don't want that.
I guess, after going through all this,
Now he's full handed.
well, you're here, you must.
That's right.
I'm the only one picked up.
You're so easy.
Sorry, that Tom was meant me before I ever got started.
I'm just happy that you're here. Wait off me.
Yeah, I get, after, going through all this, I had understood we needed something,
Mhm.
I didn't really know what we needed. And as I was reading through this, so much of it sounded like it was for a large cemetery.
Mhm.
The way it's set up and what you can do with it and everything. And I guess my thought was, is it worth the money? Or is there something else that we could use other than this that would not cost that much? I was being fiscally,
I understand.
um,
And like I said, we shopped this around and found for our needs, I mean, it meets that. I mean, the others, they're all in the same rough price range, okay? I mean, there's probably a few $1,000s over a 3-year period between the three of them. The problem of it is this one had, that's not the problem, but the thing about it is this one had the best, to me, it had the best tracking system, the best web look, the presence on the web, and the easiest to use by the public, it
also,
seems
do
to
we
me.
know how many graves are out there? Do we have
It's
any
about
idea?
1,100, is what he told me, is what Nick told me.
Because, this is like when you go to 1,500, things start, you start paying by
Yeah.
the rate.
Yeah,
You go
and that's not the
1,500.
case.
Well, and I'll bet you that there's a bunch of stuff in here that actually won't wind up in our contract because we won't utilize it.
Because when you
Well,
left,
there's so much, that you can't add on to it. Like a car, if you buy a basic car, and if you wanna add this, it's so much money, if you wanna add this, it's. And that's what this sounded like to me.
And it probably is, and we're not, for instance, the flat, you called me about the
we
flat.
talked about flowers, yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that as a city, there's a lot of things that if you were a private cemetery, you could do it.
Yeah,
But as a city, we can't do that. We can't promote somebody's flower shop
well,
or any other.
and we don't have one in town that we could promote.
That's good.
Even if it was, or anything, I mean, and I said, and that's the same thing I was saying, it's not a private cemetery.
Right.
This is a public cemetery, and so we don't have the ability to do those things. And so they either have to take it out of the contract or we go look at it again.
So basically, you're talking $7,500 to start,
That's set up and training,
and per month, it's.
150 per month.
150 per month.
Yeah, now if we have sales that exceed, I think about 3,500, it'll go up a little bit. But our sales in the last 2.5 years have gone over 3,500 once.
And it basically says that included in it up to 1,500. Beyond that, for each additional client, you're gonna be charged $5 for the client, right? I'm sorry,
Oh, that's fine.
I read it.
I think it-
I'm proud of you.
And maybe they can check list for Nick because, and I'm sure Nick is getting better every time he sells a lot, he's getting a burial contract. I feel certain.
Oh, he is, I guarantee it.
And every time somebody's buried, he's getting a burial permit.
He is, and he's also getting the $100 deposit.
And this is gonna help make sure all that gets done. And I think we're doing pretty good going forward on new lots being sold. But it's that double handful of lots from 100 years ago that are.
Could we not pay $5 service charge each time we sell it?
Well, it's gonna be over 1,500 dollars. I mean, if we're,
I mean, if we get to that, if we get to a point, I mean, we could actually add a fee to it if we want to. I mean, we could actually take it on to the actual cost of the, I mean, we can do that. I mean, would that have to go back through the council? If it's a service fee,
Probably not.
okay, if it's a service fee, we could just put it up as a service fee to cover an added expense.
Are the fees set in what are the fees
They're
set?
not set in here. Our fees are scheduled fees are set up. We've actually got them here and the council was made aware of them. This is $1,000 for,
Okay,
and then we got
so it's executive, so we wouldn't have to.
$5,500 for the 2 mausoleum slips. And I think it's 30, or one sleeve, that one solid sleeve is 5,500. I think it's 3,200 or something like that for one. And the reason for that is because they still have to go in there and put that wall in.
I
The,
did like the way that at the end, it simplified, it's what would be done, what they could do.
Or who could do.
Like the record keeping. who would be- Yeah, and then, also that if they would train someone or they would come in and help set it up.
that's correct.
And, and so the funeral homes, that's one thing, it sounds like that they would get a work order, did you? The work order management module is poised to orchestrate the life cycle of work orders related to cemetery operations. This exhaustive module covers the creation, distribution, and tracking of work orders, ensuing seamless execution of daily tasks. So,
We're not gonna use a lot of that because
They're not gonna do that.
yeah,
we don't, I mean, they're not gonna do it. We're gonna, the cemetery, funeral home won't do that. We will.
okay.
So,
And then it says it oversees and manages burial, scheduling, gravesite allocation, and communication with all parties involved. And it, enables funeral homes to complete it. I guess that's one thing, the more I got into this, the more I thought, are we gonna use all that?
well, again, a lot of this was written for private sector where they're doing the opening and closings themselves. A lot of these things that we don't do, we don't open a gravesite. We mark it, and then somebody else comes in that's approved, that the funeral home uses.
The answer to your question is no. We're not. Right? It's not. We're just a bunch of this that we're not gonna use.
No, exactly. And it's just,
Yeah, this is probably 20 pages long, and our contract probably ought to be about eight to 10 pages.
I mean, there's just so much in here, and that's what I didn't understand is, if, are we really using all that, or, I don't know. I guess my thought was just the cost of it, is that something, and if you've done the research on it, you've answered my question. That, yes, I mean, we know we need something, absolutely, you gotta have something. But, I mean, to me, when I read this, it sounded like something that you would use in a large city, if you had a large cemetery. And I didn't know if we had, a more simplified way of doing it, but yet being organized. I guess that's.
well, a lot of things that you think, a lot of it is cemeteries run similarly, when, especially private ones. But the public ones run a little bit different, and they run different from state to state, depending on what their laws are. So a lot of this is a generic that we have to go back and work with it. And if we can't work with them and be like something else, I just say we don't do business with them.
Have you talked to anyone that has used them,
There's several in the state, yeah.
and are they happy with their
Yeah.
services?
Most of this is the grade and plot regulation stuff, right?
Is what?
Grade and plot regulation. It's not so much about maintenance and other regulation. It's mostly about keeping organized.
Ours is management, yeah, management databases,
A very,
burials and
Burials.
lots and stuff, yeah.
it's not about.
We can
maintaining the
actually-
ground.
Well, we can actually, no, it hasn't got to anything, it shouldn't have anything to do with maintenance of the facilities, because we take care of those in-house.
So it's section 5. So what John is saying is section 5 stays just like it is. We're not changing section 5, that we're going to enlist them to assist us in record keeping in the procedure that we've already established in section 5, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And they will maintain a website, a page that's attached to our website. So we'll have a cemetery, will have its own webpage, just like the police does and the fire department does. the cemetery will have its webpage. So you'll be able to go on there and you can do a search for names or whatever. To find out locations.
Do you know if they will study our regulations and will they modify the agreement? Will they modify the agreement to match our regulations or will that be?
That would be our
Yeah.
job. Because we're not there,
Figured we-
I mean,
You don't have place to be buried anyway.
I've already decided.
our regulations are not, I don't even know that that's pertinent to that. Because the only thing is if they're gonna do a sale, they have to make sure that we approve it. And so that has to go, that's still gonna have to go through us. They can't just say, well, I'm gonna do this without talking to someone. Okay, they can't do that.
Because. the
Unless
state's
we-
gonna sign the agreement.
If we, well, that's correct. Unless we mark it open, they buy one that's open. Even with
so,
that, they still have to sign it before it's finalized. That's
Yeah.
correct. That's correct.
Because we want them to be bound.
What they would do is they'll send in a request, I'd like to have this lot. And, you know, here's the money for it, or say no, yes or no. They should be able to, I don't know if they've got the ability to do, they should be able to do a card purchase.
And I'm supposing that when they do a burial, when they want to bury somebody, I don't know if they'll go to the section or if they'll go, I don't know who they'll go to, but the fact that they've got a burial permit goes into the computer, so the computer's got that. And then your times start running for things like setting your headstone and that kind of
The
stuff,
whole,
right?
the deal is they'll set up, because they'll also be a place where they can name the person who has control over it. Just like we do. They'll have that ability in there to do that. They will also, there'll be a GIS or a map that has grave sites on it. You can select that grave site and tell you whether it's empty or been bought or it's reserved or whatever. They'll let the status of that lot. And if they think that's the lot they want, then they can go in there and say, okay, I'd like to purchase this lot or these lots. You know, and then that's how they can do it that way.
How's that taken care of now? Does Nick have like a map on a computer?
He's got a paper map
He has a paper,
that he fills in.
and it's up to him.
Yeah. Well, I hope it is. I think it is. If we use, that's the whole point. We've got to get them that information so they can get it in. I mean, he should have the information on the graves that we found that we didn't know about when we did GPR, the ground penetrating radar. When they ran it, they found graves. I don't know who's in there necessarily, but I do know that we had 16 or 17.
And all this paperwork that's stacked up. Who's going to be responsible for getting all of that?
Should be Nick. Nick should scan.
Well,
Well, this documentation will be typed in. If it's done if they do a paper copy instead of putting it on the computer right away, then he'll have to go back and enter that into the computer, correct? But we'll also scan that document in so that it goes in because it keeps us a hard copy. We'll have to keep the paper and the one on the server. The ones that we have here go to another cloud-based location for storage. So we'll be storing that documentation through places that just won't be as organized on the computer scanned in as it will be in this, because this computer system brings it all together into a lot with everything that goes with that lot. Whereas the other ones are gonna have contracts, burial agreements, et cetera, et cetera. We don't have files that incorporate 6 lots belonging to purchased here, and then all these people are in that. We don't have it built like that in the system. That's what this does. So
is the idea that people our age, okay, maybe you, but most of us are not going to go online and figure out how to do that online. 20 years from now, people Allison's age, yeah, they'll all be doing everything online. But frankly, signing up for Social Security, I'm gonna call somebody. I'm not gonna figure out how to do it. system on the computer, I'm gonna call somebody.
Yeah.
Cause that's, we're still,
We're
if
still moving.
somebody wants a lot, they can call Nick or they can call City Hall.
They do it all the time. That's how we do it.
This is not gonna change that.
No.
They'll still meet with
It
Nick,
just gives them another option,
but.
but it doesn't
What I
change.
thought is Nick is just gonna be utilizing the system to file
Correct.
all the stuff. When they do a
He'll
contract.
generate the contract through that. He'll generate, and they'll use our, they
and
can use our
record it
forms.
in there somehow.
Oh, yeah, it gets
and
recorded. It gets
recorded or
recorded, yeah.
And,
It's recorded.
and same thing with the burial permit and all that stuff, so that it's now part of a grid instead of just a miscellaneous piece of paper to file something
Now, instead of being individual documents, it's gonna be a file.
and organize it in several ways, so we can find
Yep.
all of the wards,
Yeah.
all of the ward lots that are.
Just like you said, we never think that we're gonna die, but eventually
You're going to,
Nick's gonna die,
Yeah.
and then what are we gonna do?
right,
Yeah. I
We
think
can't
it's-
download Nick's brain,
Right.
so
I think it's important it's like,
That's the whole point.
that's the whole point.
That is the whole point. That was the whole purpose of this, was to get, it, Nick has done a great job. Don't get me wrong in this, but if he's gone or something happens to Nick tomorrow, where are we?
Nick is.
You see what I'm saying?
Nick's not real rude on himself, he may be thinking.
I will not tell him that.
and don't forget, we're 14 years down the road from 2010, so we've come a long way. I mean, things are different than they were 14 years ago, and we now realize it's a lot of information. You try to keep it organized and filed somewhere that we can lay our hands on it. That's a bigger job than just calling Nick.
And this will also,
Didn't start with much of anything except the old man, but this Lincoln had.
this will also create,
What Johnny had, what we've done.
well, you also have what Don Livingston did. He came and did a field survey. He actually walked all of that and documented it all. And he gave us the ones that you see in there where it says section A, section B. That was done by Don Livingston. He's passed away now, but Don had created a lot of that because he did the same thing. The two cemeteries in Fulton, Greenlee and Fairview. So he helped do some research and help us out with that as well. Because he used records that Johnny had.
I had 45 minutes in person telling her I could not get it because I never started thinking. And she was arguing.
Yeah, everyone
Well,
thinks that.
14 more years, I'll be 30 years old.
Don't even go there.
You know,
We've
everyone
been doing
thinks
this for
that their
14
way-
years and we're 14 years down the road and it seems like yesterday that we took this over. And in 14 years, I'll be 80 years old.
I'm looking at count 18. That's good.
So time flies and we're doing, I mean, we really have done great. That cemetery is so far down the road from where it was 14 years ago. But it's time to take it up. I think it's time to take another step.
Yeah, you know, if anything, it's gonna help make it go in an orderly fashion,
Right.
you know, with the system we have now, with, you know, even water and sewer. There's only one way to take a payment, and if you don't make that payment, then we're alerted by it, and you can't go any further. You know, you can't slip money into my drawer, you know, you can't secretly swipe a card, you know, and if anything, it keeps the order step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and, you know, this is the way that it goes. You pass that on to the next person to learn, and, you know, so on and so forth. And it, you know, it's $7,000 and $150 each month, you know, it might be, you never know, it might get bigger. And yeah, eventually it'll be my generation going online, and I see the Columbarian going far.
We
You
go
know,
on this too.
yeah, I haven't seen.
This includes the columbarium and the mausoleum, so it includes it all.
I mean, that's the big moneymaker there is the columbarium, you know, does anybody know about that? But, you know, a lot of people nowadays, you know, they wanna be burned up and done for science and.
Well, in 88, 15 years.
I've got 5 years on you, and I've got that many more. Not hard.
Well, I think from this point forward, you know, the problems that we found out last week are prior to 2010 problems. Well, those are getting smaller and smaller. The contracts that were sold, the lots that were owned prior to 2010 are beginning to be fewer and fewer. And they're gonna go, it won't be too long, but we will be dead, but it still won't be too long before those will be gone. But,
Yeah,
but the stuff that we're doing now, all the new lots that we're selling, that's all in pretty good shape. I mean, we've got,
Oh, yeah,
we've
I'm
got
not
good,
worried,
good contracts.
I'm
good
not worried about
contracts.
them.
Our procedure seems to be very workable. It's just keeping up with it. That's the next step in keeping
And
up
that
with it.
was my whole thought, is that we need something, and you've answered my questions about the cost as far as we're going, you know. Because not knowing anything about it and not having researched at all, you didn't know what the cost of something like that would be. And,
I'm more and more floored by the cost of everything right now.
oh, food, I mean, you know, it's double what it. But,
Well, I don't
Okay,
want to
so
spend,
what
I don't
do
want
we
to spend
need
a
to
ton of
do?
money and time trying to address the pre-2010 contracts. But I think it's worth spending a little money and a little time.
I'm trying.
It just, if nothing else, to get Nick to go through and identify what lots does he know that we don't have contracts for?
Yeah.
If there's 15 of those, okay, well, shoot, we can divide those up among ourselves and start making the phone
I
calls.
agree. I thought we were in the, I mean,
Well, we started it, but we didn't finish it.
we did,
Well, I can't say that. I don't know, because Nick was not here to talk about it, so I don't know.
Or maybe we did that.
And well, the whole thing is, you know, it's not finished because what's gonna happen is there's always gonna be some out there that are questions, even though we've got, in your case, you know, it's obvious, or to us, it should be obvious that, you know, it's a Harold's lot. They own all 6 of them because they got 3 here and 2 here. And so, but the thing of it is no it may not be any documentation. And that's what we've got to get. We've got to get something
you decided.
to finish that.
Sorry.
Well,
Said we couldn't do it.
So you're gonna see Nick tomorrow?
Yeah.
Or you forget? And I forget?
Well, I mean, I know I'm saying it.
You should have a copy of it. When he does these, he makes copies. There should be copies for the individual, so they've got a copy and we have a copy.
Well, anyway, okay, so what do we need to do? Do we need?
Nothing,
to-
I just wanted to know if you had questions, and I think we've talked about all the questions. The big thing now is to work out the finality of the agreement.
and-
So,
and
but I
once we
wanted to
get
let you all know where we were on
we
it.
have to-
No,
No, we don't have to. Cause I would like for Jeff and Jalen.
I mean, the whole thing in a nutshell is I didn't even have to come back with this, but I wanted you guys to be aware of it.
Well, we would have been.
I know you would have. That's one of the other reasons I wanted to come back.
Been finding,
Huh?
we've been finding a plot.
Oh, I'm just gonna get burned. And blown, I've got a cannon set up for all the Ohio River.
That will be neat.
And you're gonna talk to Nick about starting the project of figuring out where we don't have contracts.
How many?
I'll talk to him about it. Allison will talk to him about it. All God's children will talk to him.
Mhm.
And we'll push him to
Do
get
that, I'll
that.
let you do it and I won't worry
I'd
about it.
rather you and
Okay.
Allison. We'll all talk to him about it.
Yes, Papa.
Let's see. And I'm gonna bet that we're a lot further down the road than I'm giving us credit. I'm thinking there are not very many of those undocumented lots. There's
I
a
don't think
few,
you're gonna find them, are there these people that have
Don't
been
live
long
around.
gone and who knows?
Oh,
where
yeah,
those
that-
things are.
Yeah, we've got some of those. There's no doubt of that.
Well, that's not, these just like.
and I think when we find those, when we identify them, what we need to do is go on the record and identify those as those lots are for sale. Those lots are declared
That's
terminated.
a great
All
idea.
rights are terminated and those lots are for sale. And then we move on.
Yeah.
And then if somebody wants to come in, if somebody from one of those families shows up, we'll go back and we will work with them. And if they've got evidence that they own it, okay. But if not,
I don't think
You'll
you're
have to
going
buy
find
one.
it. No, I don't think you're going to find a lot of those people.
Right,
They are
granted.
people that have not been here for
that's right.
generations.
The evidence may not be around.
That's right. May not.
Vice Chair, Mike.
Mr. Roy Benson. I saw these lots.
That's sort of what my record was.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Sure, yeah, I know.
All right, this is gonna be, if you're ready to move on to the new business,
Oh, New business.
Dale's gonna have to make a motion.
Water won't be back, I'll do it.
First off, are you guys willing to serve again if that's what they wanna do?
I suppose. You can put up with me, John.
I can put up with you, there's no problem
You
with
let me
that.
have my-
I can put up with you too.
I love that.
So unless you wanna nominate somebody new, you might nominate the same slate, continue with the same slate.
Make a nomination that we keep, that we keep the
Now,
same.
with that,
same people. Okay,
yeah.
that's what.
So one of them can second that,
I'll second it, I'm looking.
all right? Take your vote, Madam Chair.
All in favor?
No.
Two against one.
We got it.
2 yeas and 1 no.
I always choose to do Yeah.
The office carries,
it. Okay.
make a note, Mike being cute.
My fault. We have anything else?
No, ma'am, that's all I have.
All right. Well,
I know that the revenues are doing well. The budget is doing well as well. I'll just throw that out there because, I mean, we're not in any issues with that. So
now, we have to bid the mall again. Or we have to bid-
I'll bid it every spring, yeah. What we're trying to do is set up these so that I'll be going out right now. So that come April 1st, we'll be able to set it up and let them run that way. So it would go basically from April 1st until March 31st. The existing contract. That way, if there's something comes up, we've got that. And then April 1st, starting April 1st, they should be able to move into that. So I've got to go actually start the bid process right now. But we've been doing it calendar year and that throws us way off. So.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Sure.
Mike, second, Dale, and we are adjourning at 5:33.